And I don't know whether you can see that on the camera, but you can see how quite efficiently that removes the stock. So if I really give it some,
Is it okay if I put my camera on there?
Too much because I don't want to set fire to their tablecloth. But you can see that was quicker than struggling with a bandsaw. Now that's, like I say, that's 36 grit. If I get that wrong and my hands slide into the belt, it's like coming off your BMX at about 30 mile an hour. It just grates off skin, so you've got to be a bit careful. Obviously that's too coarse to do any kind of finishing work, so what I will use is various other grits, so 120 grits right through to fine Trizac belts for polishing, which will be anything up to, like, I think they're about 2,000 in equivalent of the P grits. Let's see what else we can do on this grinder then, Anne. Let's, if we change, oh, that's hogging out, so oh, is it blowing it? I think it's gone on. Let's see if it was turning it off, turning back on again. Obviously with the Cubatron 2s, that's hot, but it didn't actually blue the steel unless it got right through to the tip, so obviously, oh, you feel like that's warm but not even hot. Like if I was using a bench grinder, a high speed bench grinder, yeah, you'd actually find that would be too hot to touch. Is it working? Right. Yeah, we got power again. So if I just do a little bit more of that, I'll show you how I'd work on those contours. I think it'll be alright. Yeah, I can't actually see. It's got a torch. Yeah. So the ability to be able to drift that belt off the platen. And then I don't know whether ants, I think you can grind on these, can you? Can you use these as contact wheels? You can have a go, certainly. So the other thing that's quite good is if you can have idler wheels on your platen that aren't necessarily solid metal. If you've got an idler that's aluminium and you try and contact grind on it, like this, you'll find that you get a lot of reverb from the belt. On the belt you have what we call the splice, which is where the material is actually joined here, where that tape is. And if you're grinding on a hard surface, either a platen like that or a solid contact wheel, it bounces all up and over the place. So a soft wheel or a plastic or a rubber or a nylon wheel means you can profile on it and you don't get that judder. And that's an important feature to go for. Obviously I'd rough profile with a coarse grit, like so. So you'll be able to get in all those curves. But when we roughed out, we get the grind marks going here, 90 degrees. And what we want to try and do is get the grind marks going all in line with our blade. So as we go through the grits, we'll get a much finer and finer finish. So at that stage, I make sure that I take all those coarse scratch marks out by using a contact wheel. I've got a grinder that flips, so I can actually work vertically like this, and I can see what I'm doing very easily. Are you gonna? It will have, yeah. Yeah, that's going to add a flipping plate to it, and that's another thing to look for. If you've got one grinder that can be both a vertical grinder and a horizontal grinder, that's a big lifesaver. Otherwise, you spend all your life like this, or cranking your head, and you'll end up with a knife maker's stiff neck. So that's a key feature, really. So in here, it's not quite small enough for my particular design, but I'll be able to get right in there and clean up all those surfaces. Now what we'll do is we'll kill that. Now what's it like at reverse? Does it track good in reverse, Sam, or not?
It does when it's fixed to a bench.
Hey, when it's
that on a bit of water. We can have a go.
We can have a go. So that was the very coarse Cubatron, but if I was going to get some finishes on it, probably the finishes that I would use just before heat treat, I would probably go to something like a 120, but I don't know whether I've got a 120 with me. I've got a worn out 240, this will do. So obviously the finer the belt, the thinner they are, because obviously the actual grit is obviously smaller in diameter. But what I tend to try and find with the finer grits, this is 240 grit, I tend to go for a much softer backing weight. So this is what they call a J weight. Now, the reason why I go for a softer weight is that I can actually get that belt to drift over the corner or the edge of my flat pattern or over the edge of the contact wheel. If they're heavy and stiff and you trying to start to get nice like plunge lines, as we call it, on the actual bevels, you'll find that you get very square cut-ins, and that's a big disadvantage. So if you can go for a softer backing material, J-weight belt, you can get them to blend and you can get much nice sweeping curves to your blade. But the J-weights are all right for this kind of thing, so yours is slightly different to mine. So you go on that one first. So. And this is the other thing that you'll learn to hate. The humidity on a day like today, your belts start to do this thing where they curve and coil up into little balls, which is not fun at all. So, see if it will work then, Anne. Okay, let's see if it does it. Oh, that's not too bad. Let's go forward first and see if it tracks normally to start with. Let's try it backwards then. So every grinder I own never runs correctly, tracking-wise, in reverse. But that's pretty good. So the advantage of having that inverter drive, as we were talking about, and that variable speed, is that before, most grinding, you're going to be grinding with the belt coming towards you. Now, when it comes to surface finishing, it's actually a big advantage if you can get the belt to go in the opposite direction. For one, if you're going to be surfacing these flats, it's safer, because if it gets thrown or dragged by the grinder, it's going to throw the blade that away, so it's not going to be hurtling towards you. And also it means that you can actually hold the bit that you don't need to finish with your fingers here, so that you're not grinding them off, because after a while you'll lose all your fingertips. So we'll stick it in reverse. You don't need to go super duper fast. That tracks great, that does that. That's brilliant, man. And again, that soft contact wheel will allow me to get my surfaces prepped for heat treat. So it's gone from that pretty manky bit of surface, look, which is the best place to hold it. I keep thinking about the normal audience, look, but hold it on the camera. So we've gone from the scratch patting going that way, and all that surface marks from where I bought the steel as sort of virgin stock, and we're starting to already improve that finish. So when it comes to hand sanding to get that blade finish that we want on there, that's going to be a big advantage. So like I say, going backwards, it means I can come right up to the tip. There's no fear of that tip digging into the belt and getting hurtled into you, or worst case me. So you can see how easily that cleans up the surfaces. And if you've got any burr from where you've drilled, that'll clean up that as well. And again, we'll be able to clean up that surface. And getting that scratch pattern just how you want. So you can start to see, look, it's starting to come to life, and obviously you can just keep going until you get rid of all those scratch marks out. And I'd normally go to about a 120 grit before heat treat, and after heat treat you'll find that you'll have a little bit of scale on there anyway, so that's pretty much ready to go. Obviously I haven't quite finished the shape. So after heat treat you normally end up with something like that with black scale on. So again, I'd probably use the same technique and clean up that surface. Now you'll find that grinding hardened steel is in many ways easier to get crisper lines and crisper finishes, but obviously it's a lot slower to remove material because obviously it's hard. The other thing that you've got to be really careful of is that you don't overheat the edge. If you've heat treated that piece of steel now and you get it to the point where it starts to change colour and it starts to go blue, all that work that you've gone to or paid somebody to heat treat that piece of steel is gone. You've effectively lost your temper. So using fresh grits and having that ability to be able to slow the grinder right down is absolutely key. The other thing that I would suggest is that you always have a bucket of water handy. For one, it keeps all the sparks at bay and it keeps all the grit off your white tablecloth. But also you can keep dipping the blade. Now some people will rough out, when they're rough profiling the blades before heat treat, they will wear gloves, which is okay. I don't particularly like wearing gloves because there's a tendency of getting them caught in moving machinery. But certainly after heat treat, it's definitely important not to wear any gloves because you can't feel the heat building up in the steel. So going barehanded, make sure that you can feel any kind of heat build up in that blade. As soon as it's too hot to hold your thumb on it, it's going to be too hot for your tempered steel, so keep dunking it, okay? Now, I'm thinking, like I tend to use a little work fence for my grinds. This is one of Ant's little inventions. So what's this one called then, Ant?
7K adjustable jig, that.
The 7K adjustable jig, look, so
Great name.
great name. You thought a lot about that, Ant. But effectively, for those of you who are starting out in knife making, getting consistent angles and consistent bevels on your tool or your knife or your chisel or whatever you're making is the key. So if you're trying to learn, I would say don't sort of give you too many sort of knockbacks. When you're learning, it's very easy to have a go and you don't get the results you want, so you get sort of disheartened and you stop doing it. If you can get something like this offhand where you can strap a blade to, clamp it on there with a pair of vice grips or a little bolt these come with, and they are, so you can screw through the holes in your blade and clamp that to that. You can set that to any angle you want, and it means that when you place it on your fence, you're going to get repeatable results every single time. Now, when you lift that up, it means that every time you're going to get the plunges exactly where you want them, and that's a big thing. I think that's a big confidence builder when you're learning out in knife making. It's great that you can actually start off and get something that's going to look proper job, really. I haven't used mine yet. I haven't tried mine out yet, but I will have a go. And if I have anybody come to the workshop, I'll let them have a go with the jig as well. So effectively, how do you work this then? You clamp it on one side.
Yeah, what you can do with yours, because you've not got a whole big one through it,
yeah,
you put some bolts through the back and make like little peg rests.
Okay.
You can do that, or you can just clamp it straight through the lanyard holes or the pin holes.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically undo the back nut.
Yeah.
Set the angle that you want on the jig.
Okay, so that's any adjustable angle.
Whichever angle you want, tighten it back up again.
Fantastic. So if you've got a particular angle that you want for a particular design and knife, you can just literally write that angle and it's repeatable.
Or you can just use the bevel.
Oh right, so this is one of those digital bevel gauges.
Or you can just use a protractor.
Protractor. Okay, as simple as that really. Like I say, these finer grits you will need to run at much slower speeds. If I was grinding this, I would actually... Does this come off, Anne? Can I take that off? Oh, I'll tell you what, I can just do it. I'll do it freehand. So if I was going to clean up these flats now, I would normally start with about a 60 grit. This is a 240 grit, so it'll give you an idea of how I'd go about doing it. It's because we went backwards, wasn't it? There you go. So like I say, being able to adjust the tracking, and if I'm going to be grinding this side of the knife, so I'll be holding it this way round, I like to drift the edge of the belt ever so slightly off the edge of that platen so that I can get into this little plunge area there. Okay? So I'll drift it off. I normally drift it off by about 2 or 3 mil, something like that. Yeah, not being able to see is a big disadvantage. Yeah, that's actually alright, that, huh? So what you do is you get that natural feel for when you're flat against the platen, and I can actually feel with my fingers when I'm flat up against it as well. Now the big trick, that bit's the easy bit, the flat bit. That's not really any problem to do. The trouble is, and I might not be able to do it with this tool rest on there, is that when you get to the bevel, the belly of the knife, you have to drift it round. Yeah, I can't go low enough. So you have to drop that backhand to get right round that curve and right round that belly of the knife. Yeah, go on then. Let's take that off, and it'll just show people how to do it. The advantage of using Ant's jig is that you won't have to do that dropping of the hand. All you have to do is you have to just bring it out. The only thing that you will get on certainly knives that have got more belly, so say if you're making a sort of classic buck style hunting knife with lots of belly, you'll find that it will be a consistent flat whatever degree bevel to that point where it turns, and then it will tend to get much steeper. So you'll end up with a more sort of obtuse or blunt tip to the knife, which, you know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. If you end up using a jig like that and you end up with a slightly blunter tip, you can always take some of that excess material off by putting like a swedge on the back of a knife. That's a lot of American makers will do that. So we'll just show you how to do that briefly, and then I don't know whether I've probably waffled on enough. Is there any questions anybody wants to ask about? I know we couldn't grind a whole knife blade, but hopefully it's given you a few tips of what to do when you get back home. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go on,
You were talking about ruining the temper, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's say that you trying to grind the knife and you burn the tip only. Is it enough to just grind off the tip and it will be fixed?
Yeah, it effectively is. Like obviously, so that's normally the problem area, because obviously it's much thinner than anywhere else. So if you can't control the speed and you do scorch that tip, all you have to do is make sure you dunk it, because you don't want to scorch it again. But what I do, if I do it, is you can cheat. Rather than changing this, if you just grind a little bit of material off the back, so effectively you shorten the blade slightly by grinding it off the back and get rid of that blue area, or whatever colour you've turned it, yeah, it should be fine. It won't affect all the body of the steel here. It's literally the bit that you damage is only the bit where you can see that colour change.
Alright.
So yeah, don't worry about it. I'll tell you the other thing that you can do, if you haven't got the luxury or the money to buy a variable speed, you can change the speed of your belt speed either by changing the size of your drive wheel. So obviously the smaller that drive wheel, the slower it will go. The bigger the wheel, the more feet per second you will get. The other thing that you can get is you can get just a fixed speed motor, and you can get stepped pulleys. So you'll have to change belts like you do on a pillar drill, but it will give you speed change. Or if you're at fixed speed and you want to make sure that you don't scorch the steel, you can literally set up something a bit like a drip system with water to keep the belt cool. As simple as like literally a bottle of water with a tap on it, so that above your grinder, so it literally just drips onto your belt and just keeps the belt moist. That will keep the temperature build up of your knife blade. And the other thing that will help keep your blade cool is to use fresh abrasive. If you try and save pennies by scrimping on using a fresh belt, the duller the belt, the more heat buildup. A famous knife maker said, use belts like they're free. And that's a good thing to remember. You try and make the most out of them, but really, as soon as they lose their effectiveness, you want to change over. So let's just show you briefly how I would do this, and then are you going to leave this setup, Anne, so that you can run it if people have got any questions later?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anne, Toby, where are you set up?
I'm right at the back.
Right at the back, so ready for a quick exit. But if you've got any questions about the grinder, or you want to get any contact details about getting Ant's jigs or anything, go and speak to Ant afterwards. So we'll fire this up, see if this will work. So like I say, we'll flick it over that way, drift it off that edge, and I'll see if I can not see what I'm doing. Yeah, I can't really see what I'm doing, but you get the idea. Yeah, getting your grinder the right height is key, really. I'm hoping nobody's going to judge my bevels on this. I tell you, they're like the wavy navy they are at the moment.
Excuse me, Jiggy.
Right, so I've drifted it to the other side. Now, when you first learn, you'll find that your non-dominant side is your weaker side. So I'm right-handed, so I was terrible at the left-hand bevel for years. But now I'm actually probably better at the left-hand side than I am at the right. So there you go, we started to clean up those flats, and I would probably say, yeah, the right-hand side's terrible and the left-hand side's better. So, but you get the idea. So there you go, that's grinding in a nutshell with Ant's deck grinder. I quite like it, the deck grinder. So yeah, hope that was useful. And if you've got any questions, either ask Ant or ask me when I'm back in the show round. Okay? Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Very much. I'll leave these belts here for a minute, Ant. You can keep them going.